turned pirates in a country with a GDP per person of $517 per year. But even still, this was just the beginning.
If you simply refuse to pay, I mean, the pirates have a lot of hostages. The consequences of those being shot, for instance, would be unimaginable.
All of this influx of ransom cash kicked off a pirate economy cycle, where pirates would attack a ship, hold the crew hostage, and get paid a high ransom. They would bring this back to the clan leader warlord who funded them, which would make that person rich and allow them to invest in bigger boats and more guns and recruiting more young men and appeasing the local coastal communities who would support them, which they would use to hijack more ships in more sophisticated ways. And it repeated and repeated, getting more and more sophisticated and dangerous each time.
So a businessman who gets to be so rich that he needs to protect his business interests with gunmen, that's a war. And a pirate boss is nothing else. He's a businessman who invests in piracy.
The pirate businesses had lawyers and cooks and banknote tellers with machines that could detect fake bills so that they could know if their ransom cash was real or not. There was this great reporting at the time in 2009 by Reuters. One of their journalists went to a pirate town that had been a sleepy fishing village but had turned into a booming pirate hub, or in their words, pirate lair. What Reuters found was that this economy was so booming that they had created a stock exchange where any local in the town could invest what they had into a piracy business. There were dozens of these piracy businesses, and you can invest in the one that you think is going to go get a successful ransom by hijacking a international shipping vessel. And people made a lot of money. One local said they made $75,000 in just a couple months because they had made a good bet on the right pirates.
Pirate bosses were not just, top pirates. They were investors who had a portfolio of businesses.
These pirate businesses would in turn support these communities, help fund the schools and the hospitals in order to curry favor with the locals to make sure that they would support them running their businesses. But the people who were really getting rich here were mostly the clan leaders, the warlords, who were building massive villas and buying luxury cars and throwing lavish drug-laden parties. This was no longer the DIY Coast Guard. This was now lucrative, organized crime. And yet, some of these pirate groups still tried to make a moral case as to why they were justified in doing this, saying that this wasn't piracy, this was retaliation for all of the exploitation of Somali waters by foreign countries. You see this in a 2008 hijacking of a Ukrainian vessel, when these pirates demand $8 million, claiming that they would use the money to clean up the toxic waste that European companies had dumped in their waters. Yes, European companies have dumped toxic waste in Somalia. Were these pirates actually going to use the $8 million to clean that up? Probably not. At least that's what we found in our reporting. A lot of the moralistic, like Robin Hood narrative became really thin once warlords got involved and once they demanded a return for their investment. And you just start to see how thin this moral argument is when pirates start boarding ships and just shooting crew at random to show how serious they were and to increase the likelihood of getting a high ransom payout.
Unfortunately, there is one seaman from mainland who was killed by the Somali pirates.
Or when they started hijacking UN ships that were full of food and medical aid meant for Somali people.
The ship apparently was bound for Mombasa, Kenya, and the shipment included vegetable oil, corn, soy blend, and other basic food commodities bound for people in countries including Somalia, Uganda, and Kenya.
This was about money and power, and it was able to thrive because of a country that didn't have a government that actually controlled the country. By 2011, there were 237 piracy incidents here. Over 1,200 hostages were taken that year. 35 of them died while in captivity. This was becoming more and more deadly and more lucrative. Let's go back to that graph of the average ransoms that were paid. You can see it grow up to around $5 million for the average ransom. The total number of ransoms paid in 2011, $150 million. It was getting out of hand, but it would take a few key events for the world to really take notice.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear gentlemen, all ships stay inside, stay inside, stay inside. We are trying to run away from them now. Stay inside, everybody. This is a real alarm. Please stay inside.
There's this funny thing in international news where in order for the world to take notice of something, it sort of has to affect like Westerners. And that's no different with pirates. There was this one incident in fall of 2005 where a group of pirates showed up to a luxury cruise ship. It was full of Western tourists.
They hit us with rocket grenades, RPGs, and there was a woman in her cabin, and she was fortunately in her bathroom, but a rocket grenade went right through and blew the whole cabin out.
The cruise ship escaped, but it still led to global news coverage. Another incident was in 2008 when a Ukrainian ship was hijacked by these pirates. Little did these pirates know, they had just stumbled upon a shipment of tanks and grenades and ammunition bound for Sudan. They were demanding $35 million to give it back, holding the crew and the ship hostage. The US and Russia both freaked out here, and they sent in their navies to monitor the situation to make sure the pirates weren't going to take the weapons off the boat. In the end, the pirates agreed to a $3.2 million payout, and the secret weapons shipment continued onward. It was a big scare, and it was another step in waking the world up to how big of a deal this was becoming. But the biggest event happened a few months later. A US container ship was traveling from Oman to Kenya when 4 pirates boarded and hijacked the ship, holding the crew hostage and demanding $2 million. The US government has a firm policy that it doesn't negotiate with hostages, but what they do is send in their military. So after 4 days, the Navy SEALs arrived with snipers. They shot 3 of the 4 pirates and rescued the crew. It was an incident that was later depicted in this Tom Hanks movie. These were dramatic events, a hostage situation with snipers and Navy SEALs, and it spread into the international news cycle in a way that Somali piracy just hadn't before.
But Captain Phillips was taken hostage for almost 5 days and then rescued by the US Navy.
It was clear that this had become too lucrative of an economy. There was too much incentive for warlords to get in on all of this money for it to stop. The only way to slow this down was a serious intervention. As we were reporting this story, I kept asking, why is this such a difficult problem to solve? And we asked all of the experts we interviewed, and we have a pretty good idea now why this is way more complicated than expected. First off, guns. You can't really carry guns on international shipping vessels, partly because there's international gun laws that are complicated, partly because shipping companies don't want guns on boats because it can be a weird liability thing. You can't just have a gun in a safe box somewhere. Second, it's hard to send in the navies to patrol these waters because pirates often don't look like pirates until it's too late, at which point they're prone to use their victims as human shields against any threatening navy. So unless you've got the best snipers in the world, like the Navy SEALs, it's actually really hard to use just military force against these pirates. And lastly, you have to remember what we're talking about. We're talking about the open ocean, huge swaths of water. It's really challenging to monitor and control this in an effective way. It's one reason why piracy has always thrived on the open sea. But even despite all these challenges, governments and businesses put their heads together and they figured something out. The first one's kind of boring. It's this report that this international shipping organization put out that basically teaches ships and captains and companies how to protect themselves. They recommend them using this high pressure hose that allows them to just spray water at the pirates. They started recommending putting barbed wire and razor wire around your ship. Kind of gnarly. Put locks on your doors. Increase your surveillance. This is pretty basic stuff. Create a safe room or a citadel where you can lock yourself in if you get hijacked. But one of the big things they did was create this internationally recognized corridor where ships could all travel together in a caravan, sometimes escorted by a Navy ship from one of these countries, helping them navigate this really busy but very vulnerable part of the international shipping highway. And another huge step was, in spite of all the complicated gun laws, Vessels were now allowed to employ armed guards to stand watch as they navigate these waters. So now you've got like security guards with guns on the ship who have nothing else to do but like protect the boat. And guess what? All of these strategies totally worked. I mean, look at this graph. After its all-time high in 2011, hijacking incidents plummeted because of these interventions. But this leaves us with kind of a complicated resolution here. These communities were left behind by their government. They don't have the infrastructure of a society where people can thrive and work. That's for a lot of reasons, but it's in part because of the pillaging and the exploitation from outsiders. And so while these warlords who committed horrific crimes to get rich deserve no moral justification, it is morally complicated when you look at people who are just trying to live, whose waters have been poisoned by toxic waste, whose country has been pillaged, and who turned to piracy as a last resort. But I'm not going to go into the ethical dilemma here. I think you all can fight that out in the comments if you want. I'd love to see what you have to say. The fact is, piracy was solved in the Horn of Africa because of these interventions, at least for the most part. But just as Somali piracy was declining, incidents of piracy started popping up on the other side of the continent. The Gulf of Guinea took Somalia's title as the piracy hotspot of the world. These attacks happen for different reasons, and they look quite different. They're usually Nigerian pirates boarding oil tankers to steal the oil that they feel like was stolen from their land. The international community is now turning its focus here, and this is a more complicated thing to solve for a lot more reasons. The fact is, piracy won't go away as long as the ingredients that have always fueled it exist. Frustrated young men with no chance of finding work in an economy, incentivized and organized by clan leaders looking to get rich on the high seas, operating in a gray area where the government and the society that should support them and employ them doesn't exist or is too weak to help, leaving them to fend for themselves and to turn to more and more sophisticated forms of crime in the process. Look at this map behind me. I don't know if you caught it during the video, but this is a map of mostly of East Asia, but you get this Somali Peninsula and the Gulf of Aden and basically everything we've talked about. It's all right here. It's really a beautiful map. And when you look at it, you can see just how important this Suez Canal is to global shipping. Anyway, yeah, I've wanted to look into Somali pirates forever. Like I saw the news over the years and never really understood the story, the background, and we reported on this and we talked to a lot of experts, and there's actually a lot of politics in this. There's a lot of people who argue for like a vindication morally of Somali pirates, saying that they're just retaliating against a world who's exploited them, and like there's a strong argument there, but I don't know. Again, I'm really curious to hear what people have to say about it. Yeah, we are interested in making deeper and deeper videos. Like a video like this takes much more time and resources to like really understand, to get the data. Like we got this whole data set that we used to map, every incident. Like that's just like a way bigger thing. But we want to do more of these, so I'm curious to hear from you what stories we should do next. For those who want to support this effort of making high-quality, factual videos, we have a Patreon. It is called The Newsroom. That is what we call it. And it is a place where you can support with your money to help make possible what we do here. You can also buy LUTs and presets, which are the things that we use to color our videos, to make our videos look beautiful, like this, and not like this, which is what it looks like when we shoot it. I have a map poster that we sold out of, but then I'm pretty sure we reprinted like 1,000 more, so that should be in stock. Don't quote me on that. It could be sold out again by the time you're watching this. I have no idea. Yeah, go watch Search Party, which is our new channel that is created by my old Vox colleague and now my partner, Sam Ellis, who is building that channel, but sort of under our broader company here. And it's awesome, and it is rigorous and amazing and really good journalism. It's called Search Party. It is here on YouTube. And I think that's all the things I need to tell you about here in my little cozy couch setting. It's so dim in here. I feel like I could just take a nap on this couch, and I just might. So thank you all for being here and for the support and the kind comments and the appreciation. And we will see you soon in the next one. Bye-bye.